The following podcast is offered freely through the Insight Meditation Community of Washington and by Jonathan Foust. To learn more or to make a donation to support this work, please go to www.jonathanfoust.com. So we had a day-long retreat on Saturday, and this Labor Day weekend we have a 3-day retreat coming up, and then pretty soon we'll have our fall retreat as well. Lots of time of intensive practice. And I was reminded as I was thinking about this talk, it was maybe the last retreat or the retreat before, at the very end after 7 days of silence and, moving from the monastery, back into the marketplace. The 4 teachers were sort of sharing our final words about heading out into the world. And my wife, Tara, just read a very short piece, and it was something that she said something like, imagine if the stars were turned on only once in 1,000 years. There would be religions built around it. It would be a planetary event, and yet we take them for granted and we just watch television. So I thought about that as it kind of came down toward me, and then it was my turn. I couldn't help myself. I said, imagine if your television turned on only once in 1,000 years. They'd build religions around it. It would be a planetary event. But all we do is watch the stars. So last week, we were talking a little bit about this intersection of meditation and intuition. What does non-judging awareness have to do with cultivating a sense of inner knowing, that sense of inner sensing? And this whole process of learning how to open to what's not known yet, like how does that work? How do we shift our consciousness in order to solve problems? And so that got me thinking about our relationship to the mystery. Like how do we cultivate that sense of the mystery, of the unknown, and become more aware of the unknown? There's kind of a science to it, there's kind of an art to it. We talked about first using inquiry, like having a question, like what is the question? And opening in a way that you can release attachment to the outcome, and then noticing what arises, reporting that out, and then evaluating as to whether that information you touched into was helpful. So I've been thinking about the mystery, and I know that each of us have felt that, the sense of times of feeling incredible awe and overwhelm at just the wonder of this life. And of course, other times, just feeling life is mundane. Just the same old, same old. So how do we open to the mystery, and how do we embrace it? And I'm always amazed at how, whenever I have a topic, how something occurs in my life that is kind of significant. And over the weekend, I had the day-long retreat, and preparing this talk, a little hose behind the refrigerator developed a little pinhole leak. And simultaneously, our filtration system broke, and water worked its way under the floorboards all through the kitchen. And as I was trying to diagnose this, I actually heard myself saying, like, I got to write a talk on loving the mystery, and this freaking house is falling around me. So the irony I didn't miss the irony of that. So there are 4 things I'd like to touch on, and we'll also have a few experiences along the way. And the first is that while we are exploring the mystery of life, that this practice of meditation is reality-based. It's really about seeing truly how things work, the laws of nature. I'd like to talk a little bit about what kills your sense of the mystery? Like, what are the mental faculties that occur that make an experience of the mystery impossible to experience? And to talk about two doorways: the doorway of cultivating non-conceptual perception and the doorway of gratitude. So the first, around reality, like what is reality? And I've shared this story before, but I find it so helpful. In some Buddhist circles, and of course there's so many different flavors of Buddhism, all kind of a reflection of the culture in which, the practice has taken place. That in some traditions they have something called Dharma debates, where you debate about the nature of reality. And the story goes that there was a Korean master and a Tibetan master who were having this Dharma debate. And they didn't speak the same language, so they had their interpreters. And the Korean approach is very kind of, they cultivate like kensho, like just seeing into the nature of reality by sort of like shocking the mind, through radical inquiry. And so they agreed that the Korean master would begin. And he held up an orange, and he said, "What is this?" And the Tibetan, he checked in with his interpreter. They went back and forth, and they kind of looked at the Korean master, and the Korean master had the orange. He said fiercely, "What is this?" And the Tibetan's chatting, going back and forth with his interpreter. And finally the interpreter says, Rinpoche says, "What is his problem? Don't they have oranges where he comes from?" We're all trying to figure out what reality is. And how we discover that is through our own experience. It's about referencing our own experience. That everything you seek is revealed through your own experience. And part of the teaching through Buddhist psychology is that no one is going to save you. That it's about referencing your own wisdom, your own compassion. So I'd like to lead a short reflection with a little reflection on some of the components of what makes up our moment-to-moment experience. So if you like, you can close your eyes. When we ask this question, what is this? We might ask, what is this moment? And you might just take a moment to, again, feel your breath. Feel the experience of the breath. Rather than thinking about the sounds, can you experience the sounds right now? You might make contact with the actual aliveness in your palms and fingers and thumbs, any sense of tingling, pulse, vibration, subtle energy, this aliveness of here. And you may notice that your experience is made up of 5 different components. One could be the level of material form, and that is the sensation of breathing, or the vibration of sound, just the raw data of that happening. The next realm is the realm of feeling, the actual physical feeling of that. And the perception of the feeling. And the mental formations that occur regarding that perception. and the consciousness, the awareness of that. Just take a moment just to sense this in your experience, the occurrence of an event, the actual feeling of it, the perception of the feeling, the mental formations that arise out of it, and the awareness of this whole phenomena happening. So you might, if you like, let your breath deepen. If you like, you can let your eyes open, or feel free to remain with them closed. Part of the inquiry in the Buddha's practicing and the Buddha's teachings was about discovering reality. What is real? What are the laws of reality? And he spoke of these 5 aggregates, these 5 qualities of experience, of material form, of feeling, of perception, of mental formation, and then the consciousness, the awareness of it. And when you examine this, and you don't have to take this as faith, as the Buddha often said, don't believe a word of what I'm telling you. Explore this for your own. There are a couple little pointers about this. The first is that there's nothing outside the experiential process, outside these 5 qualities. And they're interdependent. They don't exist without each other. Whenever there's an experience of an object, there's a feeling, a perception, a mental formation, and then the awareness of it, the light of awareness of that phenomena. And what becomes so interesting is we then begin to see more clearly into what are referred to as the 3 characteristics of reality, the 3 fundamental characteristics, that everything born out of causes and conditions is subject to change. Anything you fixate on, try to control, hold on to, or push away will result in some form of dissatisfaction or stress or suffering. And that when you look toward who you are, that you begin to see that there are elements of who you are that are subject to change, and perhaps some qualities of your consciousness that are beyond change. So this intentionality to get real and to find out what's real takes incredible rigor. It takes deep relaxation and deeply paying attention. One of my favorite cartoons from the New Yorker years ago was in a meditation hall. There are these meditation cushions with little packages on them. And the Roshi is saying to this group of shaved head monks, the path to enlightenment is long and arduous. That's why we've packed you a bag lunch. So the mystery is ephemeral. You can't grab it, you can't try to control it, but there are moments in our lives when we're deeply touched by something larger than who we are. And rather than trying to describe it, maybe it's easier to describe what kills it. I've joked here a lot that much of my spiritual life of decades of living in an ashram was kind of the shadow side of spiritual practice, and that I spent a lot of time chasing lights and rainbows, doing extreme practices and trying different techniques and different teachers to have some experience that would sort of be some final experience that would explain it all to me. And over the years, I have had amazing transcendental experiences that are quite extraordinary. There was one time when I was in the ashram doing very, very intensive practices. And so much of spiritual practice, or one form of spiritual practice, involves what's called restraint with awareness. In our day-long retreat on Saturday, we restrained from speaking. We restrained from eye contact. We restrained from electronic devices for the day. And then we observed what that was like. And so there's something about restraining from habitual activity and then paying attention to what arises is quite powerful. So at that time in my life, I had a celibacy vow, a poverty vow, did hours and hours a day of practice, et cetera, et cetera. And during one particular experience, an intensive retreat, I woke up at 2 a.m, and I just had so much energy coursing through me. And I went for a walk. This was at Kripalu Center in the Berkshires. If you haven't been there, it's just beautiful. And I literally could perceive the aura of trees as I walked around the grounds. I could just feel myself feeling the energy field of a tree, and then leaving that and feeling another. And I had a really interesting experience because it was so profound, so sensitive. And then I thought, I'm having a really deep experience. And then it started to fade. There's something very interesting about the sense of I and how it relates to a mystical experience. The Buddha spoke of how nothing whatsoever is to be clung to as I or mine. It's a very challenging practice. But perhaps if you think about the times in your life that were the most ecstatic, times in your life where you felt a deep connection to something larger than you, perhaps a deep intimacy with another person, one of the factors is quite often that sense of I and mine. It either isn't there or it's really porous. You know, the flow state that we experience in those moments oftentimes is about releasing control of the future, releasing control of the past, and just sensing the moment in a flow. Just an interesting reflection. We had done this before years ago. It's one of these little Zen pop quiz meditations. We'll try this one on. If you like, you can close your eyes for a moment. This is just a little pointer toward the sense of I and mine when it falls away. So you might repeat the following phrase internally, or you can just sort of reflect on these phrases. I am sitting here thinking, and dropping the last word. I am sitting here. And drop the last word. I am sitting. And drop the last word. I am. And drop the last word. I. And then drop the I. So one element of opening to the mystery is softening the sense of I and mine. And another is understanding a particular function of the mind. that works really quite beautifully, but can also be an impediment. And this is the conceptual, comparing, judging mind. Most of us make our money in this realm. We're paid to compare, judge, figure stuff out. We can all drive cars at the same time because of that. Making executive decisions in your life. It's great to have a refined skill in comparing, judging, conceptual thinking. The interesting question, though, is can you turn it off? As it's famously said that this comparing, judging mind is a wonderful servant and a terrible master. That the moments when I have felt a sense of intuition or flow or intimacy or a sense of the mystery, what's not happening is that in those moments, I'm not comparing. I'm not judging. I'm not trying to figure anything out. I'm not in the conceptual realm. But I'm in that flow, that receptive state. So then the question becomes, how do we shift to cultivate non-conceptual mind, non-conceptual thinking? Is it possible to kind of develop that muscle? Well, we certainly want to have a sharp, conceptual, comparing, judging mind. Wouldn't it be nice if we could take a vacation from it? And our practice can actually cultivate that. You know, where your attention goes, the energy flows. You can absolutely train yourself to get very, very concentrated. You can train your mind to be the objective, non-reactive, non-grasping observer. And you can also train your awareness to open to that surrendered receiving space as well. It's more a question of practice. So oftentimes we're kind of caught in the mind. I was an English composition major in college. And I found out, as I suspected, I'm not a really talented writer. I'm an okay writer, but I'm a good enough writer to know what a really talented writer is. And as I was trying to be a writer, I struggled a lot. Until I ran across something my Uncle Dave, who was an English composition professor, said one day. And I offer this to you if you struggle with writing, because this will blow your writer's block right out the window. He said, whenever you are writing below your standards, lower your standards. It works every time. And it's the same thing in inquiry. The third Zen patriarch said this: if you wish to see the truth, then hold no opinions for or against anything. To set up what you like against what you don't like is a disease of the mind. To set up what you like against what you don't like is a disease of the mind. So this is the key to opening to the freshness of the moment. As if you were experiencing a moment for the first time. One of the best things about hanging out with puppies and children is you get to experience the freshness of the moment with them. That non-conceptual, intimate relationship with what's happening, the discovery of something fresh. And that is something we can cultivate. So I thought we might try this non-conceptual practice with a little sound meditation with the flute. Sound can be a really helpful form of meditation. So if you like, you can close your eyes. And you might like to bring your attention just to notice the sounds around you right now. And notice the sounds that are the furthest away, just on the very furthest edge of your capacity to hear. And notice the sounds that are the closest to you. You may notice that you cannot hear better by trying harder. There's actually a deep receptivity required. And there are two ways that you listen. One is through the conceptual mind, giving a name to the sound, determining its location, determining if the sound is a threat. A very spontaneous way that the mind works. Another way of listening is a non-conceptual listening. Sometimes it's described as bare attention in the Zen tradition, which is simply experiencing the sound, the vibration of the sounds, without a label, without a future or a past. And you might let your awareness open to the space of the sounds. With the sound of the bamboo flute, with the space between the notes. You might deepen your breath. And if you like, you can let your eyes open or remain with them closed. So the third Zen patriarch said, life is not difficult for those who have no preferences. Make the slightest distinction between good and bad, and heaven and earth are set infinitely apart. And when we can remember to suspend conceptual, comparing, judging, grasping mind, something ineffable may be possible. So another portal that allows us to open to the mystery is the portal of gratitude. I've often joked that when you practice meditation, you feel better. You feel your rage better, your depression better, etc. But I've also noticed a number of people who practice feel happier. Like that deep anxiety begins to ease a little bit. And I've talked with a number of people recently who've said, I'm feeling so happy, I'm beginning to get nervous. And I really think that we oftentimes have a set point of how happy we deserve to be. And if we go above that threshold, we start getting anxious. And for myself, my happiness level has been pretty high, a little ridiculously high recently for some reason, despite the house falling down around me. And I think there are two things that have allowed me to maintain a level of happiness. And one is the recognition of impermanence, of remembering that this too shall pass, that I will get old and die, and so will everyone around me in no particular order. And there's something about remembering that actually allows me to say thank you to what I have, and to deeply, deeply receive it and embrace it. And there's something about cultivating gratitude. I've noticed the more I can cultivate a sense of gratitude or thankfulness, it not only allows me to enjoy the blessings I have in my life, but it also helps me to open to the challenges in my life as well. One of the main reasons why I embrace the challenges in my life is it gives me material for these talks. But more than that, it's seeing the challenges that arise become opportunities. They become opportunities to look closer into the nature of reality and to see these four truths that stress and suffering occur to everyone. That there is a source, there is a reason for it, and has something to do with attachment or identification or clinging. And the third element is remembering that it's possible to let go, and that there are practices and technologies and awarenesses that allow me to continue to let go of what's between me and feeling free. So it's interesting because the mystery, cultivating the mystery and loving the mystery, it comes through looking at reality, looking deeply at who you are. And seeing these five aggregates can be helpful, that we're living in a material world, there's a realm of feeling, a realm of perception, a realm of mental formations, and the light of awareness that is aware of all of it. And there's nothing outside those five. Seeing that everything changes, that what you affix to inevitably will result in some form of stress, and to look closely at the nature of the self. It's helpful to look at the barriers, to see that anywhere you're holding on to a sense of I and mine, you're holding on to a rope, and you'll get rope burn. And anywhere you can release that sense of I and mind, there's a sense of ease, a sense of flow, a sense of grace can begin to flow again. And seeing how this conceptual, comparing, judging mind is a wonderful tool, and it's also possible to shift to another consciousness where new possibilities can arise. And so I thought I'd close with this reading, which I had shared before, and yet it's one that I never get tired of. It's by a teacher by the name of Dafrijan, and this was a talk that he gave to a bunch of 4, 5, and 6-year-olds in his spiritual community, and it's about loving the mystery. So if you like, you can close your eyes. And you might imagine yourself 5 or 6 years old, and this old guy is sharing this with you. Nobody, not mom or dad or grandmother or grandfather or big sister or big brother or teachers or doctors or soldiers or reverends or athletes, or lawyers, or TV stars, or people who are working, or any people who are playing, not even the president, not even a king or a queen, not even people who love each other, know what a single thing is. It is a great and wonderful mystery to all of us that anything is, or that we are. And whether somebody says, I don't know how anything came to be, or God made everything, they're simply pointing to the feeling of the mystery of how everything is. But nobody knows what it really is, or how it came to be. As long as we go on feeling this mystery, we feel free and full and happy. And we feel and act free and full and happy to others. This is the secret of being happy from the time you are small until the time you are old. If you will remember every day to feel the mystery, and if you remember to feel that you are more than what you look like, and if you will remember to feel the mystery itself, then you will be happy. And all kinds of wonderful happenings will come up for you. You will feel happy, and you will always help and love others, even those who are having trouble feeling happy and are even trying to make you forget the mystery. Someday you may meet someone who has felt the mystery really strong for a long time, so that person feels the mystery all the time and is always happy. Such a person is the best person to learn from about happiness and life and love. I hope you remember to feel this mystery every day, as long as you are awake forever. The best thing to tell anybody is to remember to feel this. I have been doing this for a long time, and it is the best and most important feeling of all. I am very happy I could tell you this. Maybe someday we will meet face to face. Maybe. Anyway, at least you and I will always know that at least one other person somewhere is remembering and feeling and loving the mystery right now. We'll just take a few minutes in silence. And when you're ready, you can deepen your breath. And when you're ready, you can let your eyes open. Thank you for your kind attention. May you and the mystery have a great evening together and beyond. I had a few quick announcements. There is daycare here for this class.